Bolt fam, lock in. We've got a cap space decision that can turn ugly fast, a veteran tight end angle that could actually reshape this offense, a defense staring at a real, okay, now what, without the same mind steering it, and a league-wide debate that hits us right in the chest because it's about the respect Justin Herbert does and doesn't get. I'm tying all four together today because these aren't random headlines. They stack on top of each other. They pull on the same thread. And if the front office misses on even one of these, it's not just, whatever, it's February. You feel it on 3rd and long in October. You feel it in the red zone in December. You feel it when you're trying to make a playoff run and your identity has to hold up under pressure. So don't blink. I've got one detail at the end that should change how you look at the whole Herbert conversation. Be honest. Are you paying big now to protect the plan? Or are you gambling and hoping the market decides to be friendly? And we start with the kind of scenario that can wreck the vibe before March even shows up. Not an injury, not the draft, not locker room drama. It's that quiet gut punch. You finally find the perfect fit, and the rest of the league tries to pull it right back out of your hands. That's Odafe Oweh. Edge is premium. Everyone knows it. And Oweh didn't just play fine after the trade. He took off in this system. In 12 games with the Chargers, he put up 13 quarterback hits and 7.5 sacks. That's drive-changing stuff. That's the kind of pressure that ends comeback attempts and makes quarterbacks speed up before the snap even hits their hands. He didn't feel like a short-term patch. He felt like a piece you build around. Now the tension. There's talk. Only talk, nothing signed, nothing locked, that the Baltimore Ravens could make sense as a landing spot. Fox Sports' Greg Auman floated Baltimore as a possible fit, and if you're a Chargers fan, you already know why that lands like a brick. Losing Oweh would hurt by itself. Losing him and seeing him show up with an AFC rival, that's the nightmare frosting on the nightmare cake. So why would Baltimore even be in the conversation? 2 reasons, and they connect pretty cleanly. First, Oweh was a first-round pick there in 2021 and spent more than 4 seasons in that organization. Familiarity matters. City, building, people, expectations, all of it. Second, Jesse Minter, our former defensive coordinator, is now the head coach of the Ravens. That's a coach who knows exactly where Oweh wins, exactly what buttons to press, and exactly how to maximize him. And it's no coincidence Oweh exploded once he landed in this scheme. He fit how Minter wanted to attack protections. He became a problem in a hurry. Now, to keep it real, the Chargers aren't walking into this empty-handed. Cap space is a weapon, and we've got ammo. And it's telling that new defensive coordinator Chris O'Leary went out of his way to highlight Oweh during his introductory press conference. That doesn't lock anything in. Let's not pretend it does. But it does say the Chargers know what they have, and they know what losing him would do to the 2026 blueprint. The brutal part is the price. SpotTrack's projected annual value is around $19.3 million. That's not a solid deal. That's top-of-the-market money. But when you pay for an edge, you're paying for disruption. You're paying for the pocket to feel crowded without needing the perfect blitz dialed up behind it. Oweh added about 20 pounds of muscle heading into the 2025 season, and you could see it. He turned into one of the most physically imposing presences off the edge. He also finished 10th among edge players in ESPN's pass rush win rate at 17%. That's not vibes. That's winning reps, forcing bad throws, and changing how offenses call games. So here's the question that's going to split the comments. Do you pay the premium now to lock down the identity of your pass rush? Or do you risk watching a rival turn your own progress against you? And while you're sitting with that, look to the other side of the ball. Because as scary as losing a pass rusher is, there's also a very real path where this offense finally gives Herbert the kind of support that makes defenses sweat. The Chargers are clearly walking into an offseason of change, especially on offense. Mike McDaniel is coming in to implement his system, and that matters for Herbert in a way we haven't been able to say with a straight face in a minute. Herbert hasn't thrown for 4,000 yards since 2022, and that's not because he suddenly forgot how to play quarterback. That's roster context. That's fit. That's help. Or the lack of it. When free agency opens, the real mission is finding personnel that actually matches what McDaniel wants to run. Last season's offensive output wasn't good enough, period. No receiver even hit 800 yards. Too many stalled drives. Too many stretches where it felt like Herbert had to be perfect just to keep the game from sliding away. One legit bright spot? Rookie tight end Odafe Gadsden II. He stepped in and gave you 664 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's not just a cool rookie moment. That's a real piece you can build on, especially in an offense that can manufacture space and create matchups. So the idea is simple. What if you pair that young, ascending tight end with a proven veteran and make life easier on your quarterback? Enter David Njoku. Njoku has made it clear, on Instagram, that his time with the Cleveland Browns is over. He's heading into his age 30 season in 2026. He's got a Pro Bowl on the resume. And yeah, there's risk. Injuries have limited him, and he's missed 11 games across the last 2 seasons. This past year, he finished with 33 catches for 293 yards and 4 touchdowns in 12 games. But you can't talk about that without the context. Part of the dip was the emergence of Browns rookie tight end Harold Fannin Jr., who blew past expectations with 731 yards and 6 touchdowns. Very similar to how Gadsden popped for us. Cleveland's room changed. The role changed. The numbers followed. Now the money side, where the Chargers actually have leverage. There's about $83.5 million in cap space before cuts and restructures. And SpotTrack has Njoku's average annual value around $10 million, projecting something like 2 years, just under $20 million. Think about that for a second. In a McDaniel-style offense, tight ends aren't just extra linemen. They're matchup weapons. They're your middle-of-the-field answer when defenses try to erase chunk plays outside. They're the red zone chess piece that forces safeties and linebackers into impossible decisions. Gadsden gives you youth, growth, chemistry upside. Njoku gives you veteran presence, physicality, and a threat that can warp coverage, especially near the goal line. The big question is health, and the contract has to reflect that. But the fit? It's right there. And that's why this offseason feels like it's balancing on a knife edge. Because while you're trying to upgrade the offense and give Herbert a real safety valve, the defense is dealing with a change you can't just hand-wave. Most of the spotlight has been on the offense, and I get it. The franchise has openly failed Herbert at times. Jim Harbaugh and the staff basically admitted it by moving on from Greg Roman. The coaching search grabbed headlines, and landing McDaniel brought a wave of optimism because he's viewed as one of the most innovative minds in football. But the defense has its own storm cloud. Jesse Minter is gone. And that's not something you brush off with next man up. On paper, it was easy for people to sell themselves on Chris O'Leary as the next defensive coordinator. O'Leary worked under Minter and Harbaugh, then left for the 2025 season to coordinate at Western Michigan. The assumption was he'd come back and keep running the same thing. Here's the thing. Running the same scheme on a whiteboard and recreating the same results on Sunday are 2 different jobs. Even Chargers.com's Eric Smith has gotten peppered with questions from fans about what this is going to look like without Minter. And the answer has basically been, O'Leary's opening comments sounded a lot like Minter's debut, and the hope is the on-field product matches that. O'Leary ran a very similar version of the system at Western Michigan in 2025. Hope is fine. The NFL doesn't live on hope. This is where roster decisions collide with coaching transitions. O'Leary could be walking into a disadvantage if the Chargers lose one, if not both, of Khalil Mack and Odafe Oweh. Retirement is part of the Mack conversation. Free agency is part of Oweh's. Minter's defenses had a habit of taking cast-offs and mid-round guys and getting real production out of them. He was a master at slotting players into roles that made them look like steals. For O'Leary, the challenge is pulling off that same kind of magic, possibly with less. And if the front office doesn't support him with pass rush talent, this defense can go from tough to predictable in a hurry. And predictable in the NFL gets you cooked. Harbaugh sending a coach off to get coordinator experience at the college level isn't unheard of, but it's not a guarantee the transition is seamless either. It helps that O'Leary has already been in the building and understands key elements, like what it takes to maximize a player like Derwin James. Still, the margin is thin. Lose the rush, lose the disguise, and suddenly you're living in third and medium all day, begging for coverage to hold forever. And that brings us to the last storyline, because it speaks directly to what Herbert has been doing inside that thin margin for years. Let me say this. I know some of you hate MVP talk. You hear it and you roll your eyes. But this specific debate matters because it's about value, actual value. And it reflects how people outside this fan base look at what Herbert is carrying. NFL analyst Sam Monson admitted he gave Justin Herbert a first-place MVP vote, and people went nuclear when it surfaced. Fans and media came in hot before they even knew who the voter was. Then Monson revealed himself, explained his reasoning, and the backlash didn't slow down. People questioned the vote, and they questioned whether he should have a ballot at all. From a broad perspective, Drake May was widely viewed as the better quarterback during the regular season, and that belief got reinforced when the Patriots eliminated the Chargers in the wild card round. That's a big reason this argument got so loud. But then the playoffs ended, and the story took a hard left. Seattle dismantled New England in the Super Bowl, and for the fourth straight game, May looked overwhelmed. This time it cost his team on the biggest stage. The Seahawks didn't even need to send more than 4 rushers to collapse the pocket. Seattle's offense controlled the game, with Sam Darnold protecting the football and constantly putting May in ugly field position spots. New England had no answers. Meanwhile, Herbert spent the season operating behind some of the league's worst protection. This might have been the toughest year yet. Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater missed significant time. Their replacements got hurt. The remaining pieces struggled. And Herbert still kept the Chargers afloat however he could. The defense helped keep games close, but Herbert didn't get consistent help from the offensive line or from Roman's play calling, hence Roman being gone. Given all that, finishing 11-6 was at least as impressive as New England's regular season success when you factor in schedule, adversity, and what each quarterback had around him. So should Herbert have won the 2025 MVP? No. But was Monson completely unreasonable for voting based on overall value, what Herbert meant to keeping this team functional? Also no. And after May's playoff collapse, it's fair to revisit whether he was truly deserving of nearly taking the award away from Matthew Stafford, who put together a remarkable season while navigating one of the toughest divisions and schedules in football. Herbert was never going to win MVP. But what he did, through constant adversity, deserves recognition. And here's the detail I promised you. If Drake May had been placed under the same kind of pressure Herbert faced all season, behind that level of protection, with that kind of instability, what would his year have looked like? We'll never get a definitive answer to that. Now bring it full circle. These 4 stories are the same story. 2026 is going to be defined by cold decisions and real courage. If the Chargers keep Oweh, you protect the identity of your pass rush. If you let him walk, especially back to Baltimore, you're inviting a brutal what could have been. If McDaniel gets a weapon like Njoku, Herbert gets a real middle-of-the-field anchor, and your offense gets a different kind of chemistry. If O'Leary can stabilize the defense after Minter, you're talking about legitimate continuity. And it all circles back to the same point. Herbert has been keeping this thing alive in the chaos. So I'm asking you, are you paying big to shield this roster right now? Or are you willing to gamble and live with the consequences? Drop your take in the comments. Where's your line on the Oweh money? Would you bring in Njoku? And do you trust the defense to hold up without Minter if the pass rush takes a hit? Tap like if you're riding with the Bolt fam. Subscribe if you want daily Chargers talk. And let's argue this one out, because this offseason is going to tell us exactly who the Chargers want to be.